on the platform, go ahead and join us on the platform. Thank you. On this evening, we have someone who I am privileged to call a friend of mine. She is a native of Northern California, specifically in the Bay Area, born and raised. Her family is still there. So she's used to fast-paced life. She has strong roots in Christianity. She comes from a theological background. And career-wise, her life has led her to be an entrepreneur and also a producer. She happens to be the CEO of her own clothing brand called You for God, which is a Christian apparel brand based on the text Romans 8:31, correct? She's also CEO and founder of her own production company called the Love Jones Productions. She has been blessed with the opportunity to be in rooms with the likes of people such as Common, Chrisette Michelle, Beyonce, just some of the biggest names. She has been privileged to sit in rooms with what we consider the top 1% or the A-listers, the celebrities of our times. She happens to also be a Christian. She happens to also be someone who has Christian values. She's not one of those people that just says she loves God or she knows him, but she actually serves God. And so this evening on today, we wanted to have a conversation with her to bestow upon all of us in person and online about what it means to have Christian values and true success. So it is my privilege and honor to introduce you guys to a friend of mine who's like a sister to me. She was at my house at midnight last night. You gotta be family to do that. Charnise Love Jones.
Hello, hello. Welcome, Charnise.
Hello.
And hello, everyone. My name is Notori, and
My name is Taylor.
we're going to be moderating this conversation, okay? So, Charnise, we're super excited to have you and super excited to learn about how we can live Christ-filled lives through our personal lives and our careers. So welcome.
Thank you.
So the first question we want to ask you today is, can you just tell us a little bit more about your upbringing? So what was your home like, your school that you grew up in like, the church, your community? Just tell us a little bit about that.
So I grew up in a very loving household, over loving, and I'm learning to appreciate that now as I get older. I grew up in a Christian faith, very strong, steadfast family and community, and I had great examples. My mother instilled hard work, strong ethics in me. So now that I am of age and, growing more into my woman, the lessons that she instilled in me as a younger child has allowed me to flourish now that I am operating these different businesses and just maneuvering around in the world. And it's that strong foundation, that solid foundation from my grandparents, my mother, my father, my auntie mama, they created this strong place for me where their floor was my ceiling. Their ceiling was just my floor. So I grew up in a very humbling community that allowed me to explore all of my creative options, that didn't hold me to one thing. They encouraged everything that I put my hand to, which has allowed me to really be open as I've gotten older. Yeah.
So we came to find out that you also have a clothing company. So what basically inspired you to create your production company and clothing brand?
Well, what inspired me, really when I was at a young age, I would always say, God, if I can make a living serving you, I would be honored. And at the time, I didn't know what I was saying. And then also, I knew that I didn't want to work for anybody. So if I had to work for anybody, God, I will work for you happily. But I didn't count up the cost because I really didn't know what that meant. And I would say it repeatedly, and it was just something that was deep down inside me. And later on, I knew that it was God that planted that at a young age. And it was for me to explore it as I grew in my faith and just mature-wise. And then when I was in college, I went to Pacific Union College in Napa, 7-day Adventist. Something in me, it was a switch. I can't really put a name to it, but I just knew I couldn't stay on the Holy Hill, because that's what they call it in Napa. I knew I had to go out into the world. So it seemed like as I got to a certain point, my purpose in me it clicked. So I just started going. And I didn't know what it looked like. I just knew I needed to be out in the world, and I'm just gonna follow what I felt inside.
So what advice would you have for youth who may feel kind of like stuck, like feel like they have to stay in their church home, or they don't know how to kind of go out into the communities, but they, kind of feel stuck? What advice would you have for people who want to explore, but also want to keep God first?
That's a good question, because I struggled with this. I grew up, I tell this all the time, I was literally birthed in church. My grandparents, my amazing leaders, which is my grandmother Opinel and my late grandfather E.L. Billy Jones, started New Hope Ministries in Vallejo, California. And that's all that I knew. I didn't know anything else besides the churches that we fellowshiped with. And when I became of age, I struggled wanting to stay at home because of loyalty, and that is what I knew. But I had a yearning to step outside the walls, because I felt that even though this is my grandparents' and my family's ministries, my ministry is outside those doors. How do I do that? And so when you're struggling, you really have to ask yourself and ask God, like, God, can you show me what you want me to do? Because He will guide you in everything that you do. Because whatever you're going after, purpose-wise, God-wise, He put it in you. And what also helped me was having a supportive family. Like, I didn't realize how supportive of a family that I had until I spoke to other people in my position that came up against opposition. My family wouldn't let me leave, or they made me feel bad. From the head of the family all the way down to my nephews, like, they supported me. They might not understand, but when I told them this is what God gave me, they all rallied behind me. And it made it easier for me to go out and explore, because I knew if I went out those doors weren't shut behind me. They stayed open. So to parents that have children who want to explore, keep that door open, because you have to trust what you instilled in us is going to come out. So you have to trust yourself in knowing the lessons and the teachings and the disciplines that I have given to them, it will not go in vain, and it is not going in vain. So that's something that I would say.
So, given the 21st century of the entertainment industry, have there been any moments where you felt as if your faith was tested?
Ooh, it gets tested every day. It's tested every day. And when they say there's different levels, it's new devils. And that is true. It's new levels, right? Different levels, new devils, right? And I didn't realize that. When I was young, in college, the level was staying in school, getting my work done, but pursuing my God-given purpose. That was a level I had to, maneuver. Then when I graduated college, now it's like, oh, I'm in the real world now. And there's different temptations. And do I want to be in church on Sundays? Because I don't have to be anymore, because I'm out of college. I'm taking on jobs now. I have job opportunities that are affording me to live in different states. And then getting into the entertainment industry, now excuse me, as I may be a little open, but still mindful that I'm in church, you have relationships now with people. And for me, it was difficult to maneuver because I did have a smart mouth. I had a smart mouth. My attitude was very hot. I was very quick and short-tempered. And I had to learn how to maneuver in that because your net worth is dependent upon your net work. And if you're quick to pop off at the mouth, people are not going to want to work with you. That's a level I had to conquer and learn. And from that moment, I had to go all the way back. My mother, my grandmother would say, be sweet, be humble. And I'm like, why is she saying this? This is irritating me. It would really irritate me. And I would tell my mom and like, I don't like it. But it was when I got to those new levels that what she was saying was ringing. Be sweet, be humble. Because there's places that your character, your attitude, and just your outer appearance can get you in, but it's your character that will see if you can maintain and stay in those rooms. And getting to that level of, this is another level. When I'm in the room with the 1%, I've arrived. Now you're dealing with pride, ego. And God is like, okay, just the way that I got you up there, I can bring you all the way back down. So now you have to learn how to maneuver that. And that was something that was difficult for me because even though God blessed me with something quick, he took it away quicker. Because he's just like, oh, you can't handle that yet. So you have to go back down another level to learn. And then he would send my mother, my family, little things that would help me exercise the things that I needed to work on. So say, God, help me with patience. Okay, well, I'm going to put you in a middle school and you are going to be a 6th grade teacher. What? Do you know the patience you have to have with middle schoolers? You have to have the patience being around them all day, every day. So it's like, okay, God is not going to give you what you ask for, but he's going to put you in situations to help you exercise that. So, yeah.
Yes, that's very, very important. And I really liked what you said about, having to be elevated from a place that you are. I know that a lot of us struggle with our own things. Like you said, you had a smart mouth, and some of us aren't obedient to our parents, or, we all have our own struggles. So what practical things would you recommend for the youth to do to kind of handle some of these struggles? I know you said you prayed for patience. What things could youth do, whether it's devotion or getting involved in some way in church, or, what things would you recommend just to kind of help them elevate themselves?
So as I said that I grew up in church, and so I felt, in my opinion, that I was spoon-fed the word, that I was spoon-fed who Jesus was. I didn't know him myself. So I started to inquire. And so the things that I can give to young people that need to work on something that you see in yourself is Google, God, how do I maintain, or how do I fix my attitude? I used to just Google everything, and we have the internet at our fingertips, young people. So then I would say, okay, scriptures on attitude, stories on attitude, right? And then also the people that you surround yourself. I have my ace boon coon, my number one, all of us have that person, right? It's my cousin Tisha. And when I'm irritated or I'm frustrated, I would call her, even when I didn't have a strong walk with God. I'd be like, such and such said I have an attitude, or I did this wrong. What do you think? And her response, even to this day, well, if you have to ask. And I'm like, girl, okay. Then if I'm asking you, then I'm identifying I do have an attitude, or I did go about this wrong. So have a good confidant, accountability partner. And if people keep saying the same thing over, I think you got to check that out. If people keep saying, oh, you got a smart mouth, okay, well, let me check this out. If you start hanging around new people and they say, you kind of got a smart mouth, you definitely have to check that out because it's someone outside of your circle. And also, if you're a little further in your walk with God, talk to him on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be, oh, holier than thou, God, I'm coming before you. No, God, my mouth needs to be fixed. Help me. And he'll hear you because anything that you ask of him, he will give you. So he will help you if it's truly in you to want to change that. And that's the practical advice that I could give to my young people.
I kind of have a question that ties in with what you were just talking about.
Okay.
What advice do you have for teenagers that are actually struggling with their relationship with Christ? Because when kids are brought up in a Christian household and then they're let out into the world, it's like two different things you're looking at. So what advice would you have for that?
Ooh, I had to learn the hard way. I'm the type of person where they were like, don't touch the stove, it's hot. I'm like, okay, well, let me see. And I go and I get burnt and I'm like, it hurts. And it's like, well, you gonna mess around and find out. And so a lot of times I mess around and find out that what I desire is not really what I want. And it's like this Olive Garden example. Say you are struggling, like there's so many things on the menu, right? You have this place to go, this friend to have, this relationship to be in. And before you can choose what you want, they bring this bread out. And they bring this bread, and that bread is so good. You're like, this is really good, this is really good. And the bread represents your home training. The bread represents, I am struggling, but I'm gonna have my devotion. It might not be consistent, but it's here and there, right? And when the waitress comes back, and it may be the world may come back and be like, okay, well, what do you want? You're looking at the menu now, you're kind of like, I'm kind of already full. I don't really have an appetite for the things that I thought I wanted. And that's how God is. When you spend time with him, you're getting full off the bread of life, right? And that is God's word, that's spending time with him. And the more you spend time with him, it would make it easier for you to not desire the things of the world. Because you see that being with God and choosing him, I'm being so fulfilled, I'm being satisfied. And the more I'm in his word, he will reveal his word to you on the level that you can understand it. And when you're around people that are of the world, right? They are doing things that you're kind of like, I don't like that. And for me, I would say drinking and smoking, right? I'm not going to act like I never tried it, because I did. But when I did try it, I realized, God, this isn't me. You don't desire this for me. I don't like it. It's not becoming for who I want to be. And also, it costs money. I don't like spending money on things that don't have an investment or bring benefits to me. So don't be like those that have to mess around and find out. Because God will forgive you and he will cover you, but you're not exempt for the consequences of your choices. You always have to keep that in mind. God will forgive everything you do, but it's the natural consequences that he can't take you from, that he can't hide you from. So that's something that I would tell young people. Trust God the first time around instead of on the back end, because the back end will cost you a lot more. And it can be the simplest things that you think that nobody sees. So yeah.
So I'm ready to get into these hats. Like, this is beautiful. Can we just, these are, can you? Yes.
This one says, You for God, established 2019.
This one says, ground your heart.
Guard your heart.
I talk to God. And the same one, different colors. So can you just tell us a little bit more about, What is your brand about, and how do you incorporate God into your day-to-day operations?
Well, God gave me You for God in 2019. I believe that's before the pandemic hit. I was a school teacher, and I was supposed to be watching the kids at recess, but I was just so in tune with God at that moment. I was just drawing the logo, and He gave it to me. And then when the pandemic hit, that's when it just fully came on, like, this is what you're gonna do. I had no desire to do fashion at all because I wanted to do production. And when at that time, it was a very pivotal moment in my life because I just graduated, trying to figure out what life was after college. I was scared. I wanted to be out in the world. I wanted to be in the streets, and God was calling me to be in the church. It was hard. And so I stumbled upon Romans 8:31. If God be for you, who can be against you? And I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter a job that won't come through, a relationship that has failed, a friendship that has failed. Like, I'm always going to be with you because you have the greatest ally on your team. So that's how You for God was birthed. And you asked, how do I implement?
How do you integrate God and your Christian values into your day-to-day operations?
I don't think I integrate it. It is who I am. So when I wake up, I am You for God. So when I meet somebody, I don't have to figure out how to plan how to add God in it, because the way I move, the business moves. If I try to cut corners, then it means I have to look at myself and like, well, is this how you represent the kingdom? And it really boils down to self-convictions. And even though what I do in the dark, people can't see it, but I want to know how I operate when nobody is seeing. It will trickle over to when I'm in front of people selling or speaking. They see, oh, she's been in her prayer closet, or this is how she moves behind closed doors, because she's moving in a way that you can only say that that's God. So I don't have to plan it because I am that. And I always say, I want people to see the way that I'm living and what I do, not just off of the brand, but like, oh, that's her walk. What she talks about is how she is how she lives. So, yeah.
So I know your business and your basically lifestyle, your Christian lifestyle ties hand in hand, but I know sometimes businesses can become overwhelming. So how do you balance your Christian lifestyle and your entrepreneurship?
That's a really good question. How do I balance my Christian lifestyle and entrepreneurship? I don't know if there is a balance, because there would be no entrepreneurship without my Christian lifestyle. Because I know I could not successfully operate a business that amplifies God without having that foundation. It does get tiring, but God has a funny way at doing things. He says, do not get weary in doing the good things, right? So when I feel like, God, I'm overwhelmed and I'm tired, that means I'm now in His lane, right? And when I become fatigued or tired, that means I'm doing too much. And you can only do so much what God has called you to do within that one day. So if I am tired of like, God, I'm having a creative block. He's just like, well, because I haven't given you anything yet. Have you sold the stuff that I've already given you? Like, you can't continue to ask for more and you're overlooking the things that I've already given you. And it's like, okay, so it's teaching me to be still and to consult with God every step of the way. Because the minute I get out of His lane, things don't flow effortlessly. I start to overthink. I start to get frustrated. That temper that I've been praying over starts to peek its head up. And I'm like, okay, no, God, I gotta step away and know that everything's gonna be okay, because you gave this to me. I didn't ask for this. You told me to start this. So I know you're gonna give me the peace, the patience, you're gonna give me the resources, you're gonna give me everything I need so that this business that amplifies the kingdom flourishes. So, yeah.
So kind of along the same lines, then how about in the production industry? How do you navigate, like, do you ever feel like an oddball? How do you navigate, like, you know, Christian lifestyle and then also like the secular industry?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so hard. When I first got into it, I didn't realize what I was getting into. I was just like, oh, I'm gonna be around celebrities and I am going to show people that I've made it. And when I got closer to God on my walk, things started to change. I didn't desire to do the things that I wanted to do in the beginning. And that may be like dressing a certain type of way. I wanted to be more modest in how I dress. Because if you really think about it, and these are to anybody, especially my young ladies, you get more respect when you're fully clothed. They see that you have integrity. They see that you have morals. You can still be beautiful, clothed. It's not what's on you, it's what's in you. And I thank God that my mother, my sister, my grandmother taught me how to put on some clothes right. Have a slip underneath. Have some tights underneath. Not everybody needs to see everything. And even for men, it's nice to have something, you know, nice and tailored that fits just for you. You don't have to go out sagging your pants. You don't have to do any of that. And so once you separate yourself, because when you're called, you're already going to be separated. So God is like, I already got you covered in that department. Now, the struggle is how you want to be seen and how you want to be portrayed. For me, I wanted people to know that I was a church girl, right? But I didn't want to be so like, oh, God is this, God is that I'm no earthly good to talk to people. And they were like, girl, here come that church girl. Here come that church girl. So I had to learn to find a balance that you can still talk about God, still be a Christian, and still operate in the industry. It's just certain things, you will have this connection with him where he will say, hey, don't take that job. You will have a one-up over somebody that's been in the industry for 10 years. Why? Because my relationship with God. God will open doors, and he has opened doors for me that I wouldn't have even thought, like, I would say like 2 years ago, I was in the room with Beyonce. People would go crazy just to be in the room. And I was in the room and it didn't even faze me. And that's when I realized, like, God, you called me to be in this room because I no longer look at these people as idols or people that I look up to. I look to them now as my peer. Me and you were on the same playing field. The only difference is your account. That's the only difference. And once you realize that, all these celebrities, they're just like you and me. The only difference is they probably get clothes that are on loan, jewelry that's on loan for them to wear, for you to idolize and be like, I want that. And now you struggling trying to find money where you don't have to go buy that because you want to look like them. But when they go home, they struggle with the same things that you struggle with. Pride, identity, character. The only difference is they are placed on a platform for all their mistakes to be shown. And that's hard. But being in the industry, you do a lot more praying. You on your knees a lot more because you're saying, God, if you don't help me, I know that my mouth is going to get me in trouble. And being in the industry shows you how much the world needs God. It shows you that. And for those young people that desire to be in the industry, and if you find yourself in the industry, that means God has called you to that. He's called you to be a light. Don't take that for granted. Don't mistake that, because he will say, okay, you getting in there, you acting kind of a fool. Let me take you out and do something else. And you don't want that. because it is a reward, though, the relationships and the connections that you make. So when you're put in places that will propel you, make sure that you stay connected to God.
And as you can see, we have like a whole little youth band over here. So maybe some future musicians, producers, whatever. So any more advice that you would give them, or youth in general who are looking to go into entertainment or production industry?
Those that want to go in, be mindful and always pray and ask God to direct you, because anybody can say, I can help you out, and they will leave you high and dry, because that's just the nature of the business. But when you come from a praying family and a strong foundation, it's a little easier for you to navigate, because certain doors will be open for you that no man can open nor shut. And you won't worry about certain things, because it's God. When God gives you something, you don't have to worry about how you have to maintain it, how the next thing is going to come, because God is like, this whole thing in the industry is for you. So I have your next gig. I have the next person that you're going to meet that's going to help you propel. The thing that I can say, if you desire to get into the industry and you haven't gotten there yet, prepare. Use the ministry as your place to practice your gift. If you have an opportunity to go to a different ministry to play, use that to exercise your gift. Sometimes you're like, well, they're not paying me no money. Okay, that's fine. God is saying, I'm giving you a place to practice in front of people, so that you can get out your nerves, so that if there's a lot of people, you know how to maintain your composure. And that's something that I would tell young people. Practice, 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 practice as much as you can on the gift and the craft that God has given you and that you feel drawn to do.
Sorry.
What are your thoughts on relationships between people that grow up in the church and people that are worldly, like intimate relationships?
Okay. You're talking about friendship or like, okay, monogamously, unequally yoked. It would never work unless God has called you. Very short story. I tried to date multiple people on different occasions, not at the same time, that weren't equally yoked. And I never found peace. I never had rest. And when I was in those relationships, God will let it go, 6 months. Okay, cool. And then something would happen, because I now put that relationship in the place where he's supposed to be. God will never let something work and never let you have peace as something that he's never called you to, because now you're moving in his permissive will. And a lot of times, young people, we are in God's permissive will as we're growing up. But I can say this, even though you are, he will always make a way out for you. It's up to you to leave it or stay. The longer you stay, the longer you delay your next thing that God wants to give you. You can't keep entertaining something that's not for you and expect God to bless it, because the worst place to be is where God was. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to wrap up. This has been great, but I'm going to ask one final question. I'm going to read it because I think it's a good one. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt this. This is amazing, isn't it? I mean, this is the real cutting-edge stuff. You see this kind of thing when somebody is gray and old and so on. But a young person having all these challenges, okay, good. Problem solved. Somebody needed to move. All right.
So final question from us, and then we'll maybe take 1 or 2 questions from the audience afterwards. So reflecting on your journey and successes, how has your faith in God shaped your understanding of true success and fulfillment?
How has it shaped the way that I thought of success? It has shaped that money, even though money helps make things move forward, but it's not everything. And that my purpose, what God has given me, is the true success, me operating in my purpose. Whether I make 1 sale, 2 sales, to 100 sales. One person can be touched, and that is success. It's not about the materialistic things. It's not about the people that I met. It's about what I have done for the kingdom. How have I shared my story, my struggle, to help somebody else get closer to God? And that's the true success. But it is a struggle because you are battling with the world and what they call success and what they deem is successful, which is money, cars, clothes, men, women. But the way you combat that is with what does God say success is.
I think that's super important to remember. Our point in life basically is to bring people closer to God. So even if that's one person, you did your part, like God is happy. So I think that's an important point to keep in mind. Do we have any questions from the audience? TJ?
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm TJ. I'm Notori's younger brother. Yes, thank you for your time in being here. It's greatly appreciated. I really enjoyed everything you had to share. I guess, could you talk about, the people that supported your professional exposure, specifically, Christians or people within the church, if they supported your professional exposure? Just a little bit about me. I just graduated from engineering school in May, and during college, I wanted to study abroad, and I ended up studying abroad quite a bit. I went to the UAE, and I was there for 6 months, but I didn't really have a lot of people supporting me, encouraging that walk. They were like, oh, I don't know, just a lot of uncertainty. I had to have strong enough faith on my own to go and do that. And it ended up paying off. Now I'm working in New York City. God blessed. And I just feel like in that moment, I was by myself and had to have really strong faith on my own. Can you talk about in your entrepreneurship journey, how, who has supported your professional exposure, and I guess the role that plays in ensuring your success?
Well, first off, congratulations.
Thank you.
Really big, so kudos to you. And I would say there were some times that I did have my family support in this entrepreneurial journey, and there's some times that I didn't. One story, I was talking to my mother, and I told her when I graduated college, I moved back home, and I was working at Coach. I got fired. I got fired from Coach. Every job that I had, I got fired because I was meant to work for God. So I told her, I was like, I'm going to go to New York, and I'm going to spend some time. She was just like, do you think that's smart? You have to use wisdom. And she said, what about the bills that you have? At the time, I didn't have a lot of bills, but it was, looking back at it, it was a lot for the younger Charnise. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take what I have, and I'm not going to listen, my hard-headed self, and I went to New York. But I had to trust what God put in me. It was a desire. I came to New York. I saw a PA on the street doing a Nestle commercial. I did my elevator pitch that I learned in college. We exchanged contact info. 6 months later, he asked, hey, do you want to work the VMAs? Well, we need PAs. I was like, yeah. I took the job. I didn't know where I was going to stay. I just knew that I needed to be here. And this is a full circle moment because now I am working the VMAs right where I started. And so sometimes you might not have the support of families, you might not have the support of friends, but you have to trust and rely on God. Like, God, you put this in me, so you have to give me everything that I need so that I can go forward. And this is really big for the youth. Your calling was not a conference call. So people will not understand the vision that God has given you. But if you trust him, along the path, he will give you people that will that will have the understanding. If you don't have the resources, he will have people give you the resources and give you the things that you need. You just have to trust him.
I think we have one more question.
That one again. Your call was not a conference call. Now that's big. That's huge. Oh, you got a mic? Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Caesar.
Nice to meet you.
I am the lady that you're here.
Thank
I
you.
love your candidness, and I really wish this church was filled with more young people to hear this, including my daughter. I wish she was here. I know so many young people out there that need to hear you. My question to you is, how can I get them to hear you? Give this kind of talk and build them to help them understand that the walk is not their walk, but they have to put God first and walk where he sent them.
That was deep. Thank you so much. How can they hear me give this talk? You know what? Social media. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Char Take Your Time. I also sometimes speak at my church home, Greater Deliverance in Inglewood, California, underneath the amazing pastor, Pastor Mark Leonard. You can follow us on YouTube. And after, I know Pastor Tiffany will give you all of my social handles so that you can follow me. And then you also have this amazing replay. And if you want to speak to me one-on-one, I'm very open to having that conversation. Yeah. Yes, in the back?
Hi, can you guys hear me without the mic?
I can hear you.
Yeah, listen. You got to clap for good things.
Okay, the streaming got to hear me, so here goes the mic. So in the audience today, we have a lot of parents, which actually outnumbers the amount of youths in the audience. But I believe that our youths are online. So my question is, on behalf of the parents, can you give us some tips or some expectations that you had for your family, your grandmother, your mom, and your sister when you were not walking the walk, going, like, doing your thing to get where you wanted to be. At the same time, it was not in alliance with what you were trained, in your Christian walk. And what are some of the expectations you had from your family, your support unit, that maybe parents here can apply to kids that are not in the church right now, that hopefully would help them to come back in that alignment?
Ooh, I love that one. That kind of brought tears to my eyes, because this is something I struggled with my my family. The expectation I had for the elders that were to guide me was to be open and to be supportive. And I had this weird thing in my head, like, they're going to support everything I do. And they didn't. But to parents, it's one thing I have to let you know. Do not get on your child as if you weren't their age once before. Because the things that they're doing, you used to do, and sometimes 10 times worse. Sometimes you're looking at your reflection. But on the flip side, I can say, if your child comes to you and says, I want to do this, and you know they're not walking the walk, you as a parent have to trust and know that everything you put in them is going to come out later on down the road. And I am 31, and everything, and God is my witness, everything that has been prayed, that has been spoken over my life, that has been told to me, I am pulling from the archives right now. Everything that I know, when something is hard, the first thing I want to do is run to the altar. I will, if I could, when things get hard, I want to run back to the church that raised me, because I know where my help comes from. Even when I bumped my head, I said, okay, what do I do? Call on God. Why? Because my grandmother, my mother did it. Okay, every morning now, I anoint my head and my mouth with oil. My grandmother gave me a bottle of oil when I moved to LA. Every morning, she doesn't know. She said, anoint your head, anoint the place you go. No, I spray in my mouth and in my head, and I said, God, protect my head and help me with my mouth. So you have to trust and know the things that you instill in your children are going to come out later on. And you cannot beat them for the things that they don't know. You can't save them from everything. The same way your mother and your father couldn't save you. You just had to let them go and figure it out. And once they leave, always have your arms open, because you don't want to push them to other people, even if you bump heads. And for children, you have to understand and realize your parents are doing the best that they can do, and that they are sometimes still operating from their wounded child, from their childhood. And they're only doing what they can do based off what their parents could do. And so as we get older, we learn to have a little more empathy and sympathy for our parents. And now the relationship blossoms and changes, because I see my mom, I see myself in my mom, I see myself in my grandmother. And the one thing that stayed consistent was the love. Even when we bumped heads, they still let me know, I love you, I don't agree with you. I love you being disobedient, you better watch your mouth, but I still love you. So stay consistent with love and allow them to bump their heads, but never close your doors, because you will run them into the devil that you're trying to save them from.
I know I'm not the speaker, but I just wanted to add to that, just to answer your question. I feel like it's also important to meet your kids where they are. If they're not in the church for whatever reason, you know, don't shut them out. Like Charnise was saying, try to be available to them in whatever way that looks like to them. If they're, you know, they want to produce music, or maybe they have a job on Saturdays, ask them to go out to lunch. Hey, the church is having this picnic, come to this. But don't try to shove God down their throat, because honestly, that might not be something that they want to hear, and it might make them push you away. So you kind of have to meet them where they are and just trust that it'll be a slow process of them coming back to God.
Hi.
My name is Sister Ayana Richards. I actually go to Bethel. I graduated from Hanson Palace Elementary, but I'm the head clerk and the head of education at Bethel. I wanted to know, how did you end up going to Pacific Union College, which is an Adventist school, Christian, you're a Christian, so I just want to know that story.
Very quickly, I didn't want to go. I didn't. I went kicking and screaming. I wanted to go to an HBCU to live my best life. And my grandmother said no. My best friend's son, Henderson, went to PUC, and they spoke so highly of this campus. And I said, well, the way God set it up, I applied to colleges late, and I said, okay, this is the only college that would get me in, that would let me in. I didn't have the best of grades. I graduated with my AA from a junior college. PUC gave me an academic scholarship, and a basketball scholarship. And I said, well, God, okay, bet. I was surprised at the academic scholarship. I said, God, this must be the wrong address, but if it's mine, I'll take it. But that's how I landed at PUC. And when I tell you, best decision, thank you, Grandma, for making that decision for me.
All right, you guys, well, can we give it up for Charnise?
Yeah.